So welcome back, our YouTube family. As previously mentioned, I neglected to turn off my alarm, which alerts me of the 9th hour offering. I forgot to turn it off this time, and it went off. And when it goes off, it stops the video recording. And so this will still be part 19. This will still be part 19 of the same teaching, but we're continuing now. I left off at verse 22, and now we will begin at verse 23. Turn away from all their deeds and all their uncleanness. Turn away from all their deeds. Wait a minute. Now, I've said this to the Mashpaka before. Nobody's ever accused me of being smart. No one has ever accused me of being smart. I'm not a smart man. You know, I speak what Abba tells me to speak. I'm not a smart man. But somebody correct me now. Does this say all, some, part? What does it say here?
Oh.
Now the converse of that is what? Yahuwah tells us to do what? So if we are obeying all of Yahuwah's commands, that means that we are turning away from all their deeds, right?
Yes, Barak Yahuwah.
Yes.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Turn away from all their deeds. So that means to turn away from all their deeds, not some of them, not part of them, not half of them, not a fraction of them, but all of their deeds. Turn away from all of their deeds. And if we are truly walking the ancient path, we are going to turn away from all of their deeds and all their uncleanness. All of their uncleanness. We can have no uncleanness on us. And again, if we are turning to the right or to the left of the Torah of this ancient path, there is uncleanness on us. There is uncleanness on us. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Turn away from all their deeds and all their uncleanness, and observe the ordinance of all our youth, and do his will, and be upright in some things.
Oh.
A few things.
All of it.
Barak Yahuwah. In all things. And he will barak you in all your deeds. Now, there are some, as we've been talking, there are some characteristics that are to follow someone who is walking the ancient path and not turning to the right or to the left of it. Here is one of those characteristics. He will what? Barak you in all your deeds. In all your deeds. If we're truly walking as Abraham walked, and as Ishak walked, and as Yaqub walked, let's go further. If we're walking as Aḍam walked, as Aḍam, you see, the Christian church doesn't teach us about Aḍam. Aḍam was a righteous man. Yes, he was. He committed that one transgression. He committed the one transgression and partook of the fruit, and thus he was removed from the garden. But if you read the other books about Aḍam, Aḍam was pure. Aḍam was righteous. And Abba loved him. And Abba loved him. And so when you read about Aḍam and how Abba barak him, and how Abba baruch his son, Habal and Self, and how Abba baruch all these are righteous fathers who walk this ancient path. We ought to have these characteristics. If we're walking this, if we're truly walking the ancient path, one of the characteristics is that we ought to be baruch in all our deeds. Yes, we do. Yes, we are. We should be baruch in all our deeds. We should be baruch in all our deeds. And will raise up for you a plan of righteousness through all the earth, throughout all generations of the earth. And my name and your name shall not be forgotten under the Shamayim forever. Go, my son, in shalom. May all Ayun, my Elohim and your Elohim, strengthen you to do his will. And may he barak all your seed and the remnant of your seed for the generations forever. With all righteous barakut, that you may be a barakah on all the earth. And he went out from him celebrating. Barak Yahuwah. We're going to stop right here. We're going to stop right here until the 9th hour. After the 9th hour offering, Mashpaka, we're going to stop right there. Barak Yahuwah.
So, Elder,
Yes, sir.
a question.
Yes, sir.
When Yahusha was born
Yes,
in
sir.
the manger around the animals, was that symbolic of him replacing the animals as a sacrifice?
Oh, Yahu. See, I was headed to the restroom. I was trying to get away and go to the restroom. But let me read this. Ashley. Yeah, I got caught up. Ashley, let me go here. Let me go here. Come on. Here we go. I'm going to let you read it.
Yes, sir.
Tell you what, let me go use the restroom,
Yes, sir.
and I'll be right back. That thing's still recording, ain't it?
Yep.
You still gonna hear me say I gotta go to the restroom.
Well, everybody got it. You sure do. Everybody got it. Everybody got it. What flavor is the cream?
I think it's apple. I gotta read it again. Oh, that's my alarm.
No, I know you hear music, but my wife. I didn't even go upstairs now.
Oh, yeah.
Got you there. Let me find you another precept. Beside the mouth of two or more witnesses,
Yes, sir.
every matter is established.
Yes.
Okay. Go to, let's do three witnesses.
Yes, sir.
Go to Exodus chapter 13. Ask the question again so that the rest of us probably know.
My question was, with Yahusha being born around the animals, was that symbolic of him replacing the animal sacrifice?
Okay. Go to Exodus chapter 13.
13. Okay.
Begin at verse 1.
And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Kadush to me all the firstborn, the one opening the womb among the children of Yasharal, among man and among beasts. It is mine.
It is what?
It is mine.
Among man and beast. It is what?
It is mine.
It is mine. It is mine. Among man and beast, the firstborn of man and beast is mine. Now turn to Colossians chapter 1 and read verse 15.
Who is the likeness of the invisible Elohim, the firstborn of all creation.
Of all creation.
Of all creation.
All firstborn are his.
Yes.
And he came as the firstborn of all creation in order to what? Reconcile all creation back to himself.
Mm-hmm.
Both his firstborn son and the firstborn of beasts.
Yes.
To reconcile back to himself.
Yes.
So that shows his great love for all of his creation.
Yes.
And that shows that he never wanted an innocent animal to die.
Yes.
He never wanted that. He's always simply wanted our obedience. Mm-hmm. He's always simply wanted us to give him praise. To give him praise. Barak Yahuwah. 3:55. 5 minutes, Miss Parker. Barak Yahuwah. Worship Him, worship Him, worship Him, Now that you know what the offerings represent, there should not be any problems here in this 9th hour. This 9th hour, we understand that these are the hours of the offerings, the 3rd hour, the 6th hour, and the 9th hour. Yahusha hung on the stake, the 3rd hour, the 6th hour, and the 9th hour. We understand that the continual offerings were in the 3rd hour and in the 9th hour. But we understand that those were a mere representation of us. And we see through the example of Daniel and through the example of Yahusha hanging on the stake in the 3rd hour and the 6th hour and the 9th hour, who represented us, as an offering. And we see the example of Daniel, who offered to Yahuwah 3 times a day while in captivity. The 3rd hour, the 6th hour, and the 9th hour. This is the ancient path. This is the ancient path. And so I'm not going to even prompt you. I'm not going to prompt anyone to bring no offering. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Because I have to do that, it's not coming from the right place. Two minutes before the 9th hour.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. Hallelujah. I'm always so excited to praise him.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
1 minute. 1 minute.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Hallelujah. That's a lot of food there to eat.
Barak Yahuwah.
He said a lot.
Barak Yahuwah. I'm full with food.
Barak Yahuwah. Oh, Barak Yahuwah, the 9th hour. Mute your mics, I think.
Made you too small in my life. Oh, yeah. Forgive me. And I am believing that you were able to help me. But now, oh yeah, I see my own in my heart and show yourself strong. And in my eyes, I win my soul. Be magnified. Oh, yeah. Be magnified. Come on, magnify.
Barak Yahuwah.
Magnified. Oh, yeah. Yes, you are. You are. You are highly exalted.
Yes.
And there is nothing you can do. Oh, yeah. Eyes are on you. Be magnified. Oh, yeah. Be magnified. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Barak Yahuwah.
The wisdom of man. Oh, yeah. Forgive me. And I have responded to prayer. Instead of the light, I have neglected to hide it the place. But now, oh yeah, I see my God. Heal my heart and show yourself strong. And in my life, I with my soul. Oh yeah, be magnified. Oh yeah, be magnified. Be magnified. Oh yeah. You are highly exalted, and there is nothing you can do. Oh, yeah, eyes are on you. Be magnified. Oh, yeah, be magnified. Be magnified. Oh, yeah. You are highly exalted, and there is nothing you can do.
Be magnified. Barak Yahuwah. I love it. I love it. I love it. Barak Yahuwah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
I feel good, good, good. I feel good, wonderful, good. Every time I talk about Yahuwah, I feel good, good, good. I feel good, good, good. I feel good, wonderful, good. Every time I talk about Yahuwah, I feel good, good, good. I feel good, good, good. I feel real wonderful, good. Every time I talk about Yahuwah, I feel good, good, good. Come on, Mashpata. I feel
good, good, good. I
I
feel
feel
good, wonderful, good.
Every time I talk about Yahuwah, I feel good. I feel good. I feel good. Wonderful, good. Every time I talk about Yahuwah, I feel good.
Yahuwah, we call you. Yahuwah, we call you. Your name be highly praised. Yahuwah, we call you. Yahuwah, we call you. Your name be highly praised. Yahuwah, we call you. Yahuwah, we call you. Your name be highly praised. Yahuwah, we praise you. Yahuwah, we praise you. Your name be highly praised. Yahuwah, we praise you. Yahuwah, we praise you. Your name be highly praised. Yahuwah, we adore you.
Yahuwah, we adore you.
Yahuwah, we adore you.
Yahuwah, we adore you.
Your name be highly praised. Yahuwah, we love you.
Yahuwah, we love you.
Yahuwah, we love you.
Yahuwah, we love you.
Your name be highly praised. Yahuwah,
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 Yahuwah, Yahuwah.
Yahuwah,
Your name be highly praised. Oh, Yahuwah, 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 Yahuwah. Your name highly praised. Yahuwah, 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 Yahuwah. Your name be highly praised. Mashpaka, I appreciate you wanting to join in, but when you join in via Zoom, there's a delayed sound, and rather than being in unison, it only creates a bunch of confusion. It only creates a bunch of confusion. So I appreciate you wanting to join in, and I pray that Abba unites us as one day where we under the same roof to where we can praise him with one voice in unison. But while we're on Zoom, while the ones that are praising via Zoom, if all of the rest of us could mute our mics so that we're not just bringing a bunch of confusion and a bunch of noise that takes away from the praise. Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Ms. Parker, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know if I was being heard or not. I have an offering. Atuda Yahuwah for setting me free. I praise you, Yahuwah, with all of my being. To only Yahuwah I give all esteem. My offering and honor to Yahuwah I bring. So join me, Mishpaka, our praises we sing. To our Yahusha, our sovereign King. Yahuwah, Yahuwah, our offerings we bring. Yahuwah, Yahusha, we give all esteem. My offerings and love to Yahuwah I bring. So join me, Mishpaka, our praises we sing. To our Yahuwah, our sovereign King. Yahuwah, Yahuwah, our offerings we bring. Yahuwah, Yahusha, we give all esteem.
Yes.
Barak Yahuwah.
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 Yahuwah is a rock on which I stand. Yahuwah is a rock on which I stand. Yahuwah is a rock on which I stand. He's above, below, before, behind, and around me. He's above, below, before, behind, and around me. He's above, below, before, behind, and around me. Yahuwah is a rock on which I stand. 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 He's above, below, before, behind, and around me. He's above, below, before, behind, and around me. He's above, below, before, behind, and around me. Yahuwah is a rock on which I stand. Rock Yahuwah.
Rock Yahuwah.
Rock This is the yom that Yahuwah has made, that Yahuwah has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Rock Yahuwah. Rock Yahuwah.
Rock Yahuwah. Rock Yahuwah. Thank you, Abba, for even the widow's mite. Uh-oh.
Raise a shout for Yahuwah, all the earth. 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 Give thanks to 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 Yahuwah, all the earth. Raise a shout. Raise a shout for Yahuwah, all the earth. Raise a shout for Yahuwah, all the earth. Raise a shout for Yahuwah, all the earth.
Rock Yahuwah. Rock Yahuwah.
Raise a shout for Yahuwah, all the earth. All right. Enter his gates with thanksgiving, all the earth. Enter his gates with thanksgiving, all the earth. Enter his gates with thanksgiving, all the earth. One more time. Enter his gates with thanksgiving, all the earth. Raise a shout. Raise a shout for Yahuwah, all the earth. Raise a shout for Yahuwah, all the earth. Raise a shout for Yahuwah, all the earth. Hallelujah.
Rock Yahuwah. Rock Yahuwah.
Rock Yahuwah.
Celebrate Yahuwah. It's a celebration. Celebrate Yahuwah. It's a celebration. Celebrate Yahuwah.
Yes.
It's a celebration.
Yes.
It's a celebration. Thank you, Yahuwah.
Yes.
It's a celebration. Thank you, Yahuwah. It's a celebration. Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Oh, how I love Yahuwah. Oh, how I love Yahuwah. Oh, how I love Yahuwah. Because you first loved me. I praise you for the dawn of your son, Yahusha, who died for us. I praise you for the dawn of your son, Yahusha, that died for us. Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. Oh, how we love 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 Yahuwah. Oh, how Kadosh is. 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 Oh, how I love Yahuwah. 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 Oh, how we 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 love Yahuwah. Oh, how Kadosh is. 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 Oh, how Kadosh is.
Yes.
Oh, how we love Yahuwah. 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 Rock Yahuwah.
Barak
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
Rock Yahuwah.
Yahuwah, you are the lover of my soul. Yahuwah.
Basham, Yahusha Barak. Yahuwah is the King of Kings.
It was muted.
Sing Mishpaka, sing Mishpaka, sing Mishpaka to the King. Barak Yahuwah Basham Yahusha. Barak Yahuwah is the King of Kings. Sing Mishpaka, sing Mishpaka, sing Mishpaka to the King. Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah Basham Yahusha is the King of Kings. Barak Yahuwah Basham Yahusha. Barak Yahuwah is the King. So sing Mishpaka, sing Mishpaka, sing Mishpaka for the King of Kings. Barak Yahuwah Basham Yahusha. Barak Yahuwah is the King. Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Hallelujah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Yahuwah, you're the lover of my soul. Yahuwah, you healed me and made me whole. Yahuwah, you're the lifter of my head. Yahuwah, you provide my daily bread. Yahuwah, you're the great and mighty one. Yahuwah, you sent your one and only son. Yahusha, you shed your blood and died for me. Yahuwah, now I live in victory. Yahuwah, you're the lover of my soul. Yahuwah, you healed me and made me whole. Yahuwah, you're the lifter of my head. Yahuwah, you provide my daily bread. Yahuwah, you're the great and mighty one. Yahuwah, you sent your one and only son. Yahusha, shed your blood and died for me. Yahuwah, now I live in victory. Hallelujah, 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 Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. Thank you, Yahuwah. Thank you.
Barak Yahuwah.
I just want to give you praise, praise and esteem on this yom. I just want to give you praise, praise and esteem on this yom. Kadosh, 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 Yahuwah, Kadosh, 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 Abayah, Kadosh, 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 Yahuwah, Kadosh, 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 Abayah, Kadosh, 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 Yahuwah, Kadosh, 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 Abayah, Kadosh, 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 Abayah, Kadosh, 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 Yahuwah. I just want to give you praise, praise and esteem on this yom. I just want to give you praise, praise and esteem on this yom. I just want to give you praise, praise and esteem on this yom. I just want to give you praise, praise and esteem on this yom. Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Praise the name of Yahuwah.
Many ask me why I do the things I do because I know him. I revere him because I know him. I praise him because I know him. I esteem him because I know him. I call on him because I know him. I plead him because I know him.
I pour it all to him because I know him. I wait for him because I know him. That's why I love him so. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
Thank you, Yahuwah. Thank you, Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Yes, your praise.
Yes.
Let your name be praised.
Sister Leota, I see you.
Basically,
You go before I know that you've even gone to win my war. Your love becomes my greatest defense. It leads me from the dry wilderness. And all I did was praise. And all I did was worship. All I did was bow down to you. All I did was stay still. Hallelujah, you have saved me. It's so much better your way. Hallelujah, great defender. So much better your way. Please cleanse us, Yahuwah.
Barak
Wash
Yahuwah.
me completely from my guilt and cleanse me from my sin, for I know my transgressions and my sin is ever before me. Against you or you alone have I sinned and done evil in your eyes, that you might be proven right in your words. Be clear when you judge. See, I was brought forth in wickedness, and in sin my mother conceived me. See, you have desired truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden part you make me know wisdom. Cleanse me with hyssop, and I am clean. Wash me, and I am whiter than snow. Let me hear joy and gladness. Let the bones you have crushed rejoice. Hide your face from my sins and blot out all my wickedness. Create in me a clean heart, O Elohim, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Do not cast me from your presence, and do not take your Ruach HaKodesh from me. Restore to me the joy of your deliverance, and uphold me, noble Ruach. Let me teach transgressors your ways, so that sinners turn back to you. Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. So be it.
Yes.
Barak Yahuwah.
So be it.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
Oh, Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Oh, Barak Yahuwah. Yahuwah, we thank you. Oh, Yahuwah, we thank you. Yahuwah, we thank you. Oh, Yahuwah, we thank you. Yahuwah, we worship you. Oh, Yahuwah, we worship you. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. We are so grateful. Oh, Yahuwah, we are grateful. Yahuwah, we are grateful. We thank you, Yahuwah. Oh, Yahuwah, we love you. Oh, Yahuwah, we love you. Barak Yahuwah. Oh, Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. All right. Abba, we pray that this offering has ascended as a sweet smelling aroma into your nostrils, and that you've been well pleased with the food that your children have brought to you. Well satisfied with the food that your servants have prepared, and that you are well pleased to come and dwell in the midst of us. In the Basham of Yahusha, HaMashiach, so be it. So be it. So be it.
So be it.
Barak
So
Yahuwah.
be it.
Go ahead and mute your mics once more, Mishpaka. Go ahead and mute your mics once more, Barak Yahuwah. Continuing now in this ancient path, searching for the ancient path, looking at the example of our ancient father, our ancient righteous father, Abraham. We continue this search, continue this walk, looking now at the 22nd chapter of Jubilees. The 22nd chapter of Jubilees, more accurately called Jubileem. Jubileem, beginning at verse 1. And it came to pass in the first week, in the 44th Jubilee, in the second year, that is, the year in which Abraham died, that Ishak and Ishmael came from the well of the oath, Barashyt, to celebrate the feast of Shabu'ut, that is, the feast of the first fruits of the harvest to Abraham. Here is another key. Those who walk in the ancient path, we celebrate the feast days. We celebrate the feast days. Yes, we do.
Yes.
But we don't just celebrate them on any day. We celebrate them on the fixed specific day in which our Abba has commanded us to celebrate them on.
Yes.
There are many calendars. They're all scattered all over the place. But there's only one fixed calendar that YAHUAH has prescribed. Only one. But we, those who are on the ancient path, we follow that fixed calendar. That fixed calendar that was revealed to Enoch. And we celebrate the feast days. We celebrate the feast days. To celebrate the feast of Shabu'ut. Now here, the feast of Shabu'ut, as Abba has revealed to us, this is celebrate to what? This is celebrated in order to remember the renewal of the everlasting covenant. The everlasting covenant with mankind was made on the first day of the week, on Shabu'ut. It was celebrated in Shamayim before it was celebrated on earth. And each Shabu'ut, the everlasting covenant, is renewed. This is why Ishak was born on Shabu'ut. And this is why Yahusha himself was born on Shabu'ut, because he was what? Given for a covenant, given as a covenant to the people. The feast of first fruit of the harvest to Abraham, their father. And Abraham celebrated because his two sons had come. For Ishak had many possessions in Barashyt, and Ishak was wont to go and see his possessions and to return to his father. And in those days Ishmael came to see his father, and they both came together. And Ishak offered a sacrifice for a burnt offering, and presented it on the altar of his father, which he had made in Hebron. So we see once again that offering is an ancient practice, and it is in accordance with Torah. And so it is not optional, it is mandatory that we bring YAHUAH his offerings. And he offered a thank offering. We are to always what? Give thanks. Yes, we are. We are to always give thanks, for this is the will of Elohim for us. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And he offered a thank offering and made a feast of gladness before Ishmael, his brother. And Rebekah made new cakes from the new grain and gave them to Jacob, her son, to take them to Abraham, his father, from the first fruits of the land, that he might eat and Barak, the creator of all things, before he died. Now, Shabu'ut, for those who don't understand, who are on YouTube, and for our new family joining us via Zoom, again, Shabu'ut is celebrated to remember the renewing of the everlasting covenant. It's always celebrated to remember the renewing of the everlasting covenant, but it is also a foreshadowing. Shabua'ut is it is centered around the wheat harvest. It is centered around the wheat harvest. There are two first fruits. There is the first fruit after the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And what happens in these first fruit feasts is that, for instance, in the Feast of Unleavened Bread, that feast is centered around the barley harvest. And not until our ancestors brought the first fruits from the new barley harvest and gave a sample of it, of the first fruit of that harvest to the priest to take in the most kadosh place to present a wave offering. Not until this occurred could they partake of the new barley harvest. And so this was a representation of Yahusha. Listen very carefully. That first fruit was a representation of Yahusha. This is the day, first fruits, that Yahusha ascended. Now listen very carefully. He ascended 2 times. After he had resurrected, when Maryam came and she held on to him, and he told her not to hold on to him because he had not yet ascended to the Father. He ascended on the weekly Shabbat. He was impaled in the middle of the week, in accordance with Daniel 9:27 and other precepts. He was impaled in the middle of the week, what man calls Wednesday. And he was in the earth 3 days and 3 nights. The 4th day, 5th day, 6th day, and he rose on the Shabbat day. He rose on the Shabbat. Maryam saw him. Maryam saw him on the first day of the week after he had already risen. After he had already risen on the Shabbat day, and he told her not to hold on to him because he had not yet ascended to the Father. What was he saying? He had to ascend to the Father and present himself as a wave sheaf offering, as a first fruit offering. And he had not yet done so. So the following first day, after the Shabbat, he then ascended and presented himself as a wave offering, as a first fruit offering. And so that first fruit pointed towards him. That first fruit pointed towards him. Shabua'ut is also a first fruit offering, but it is the first fruit of the wheat harvest. Of the wheat harvest. It is a representation of the wheat being gathered into the barn. Who is the wheat? We are the wheat. Yahshua is his wheat. Yahshua is his first fruits. Yahshua is his first fruits. And so Shabua'ut represents the gathering of the wheat into the barn. It represents the rest of the first fruits of the first fruit harvest being gathered into Yahuwah. Being gathered into Yahuwah. So the first fruit harvest represented Yahusha. The second represents us. It represents us. He was the first fruits of many to come. He was the first fruit of the first fruits to come. Shabua'ut is a representation of another first fruits of the first fruits to come. It is a representation of another first fruits of the first fruits to come. As we have been discussing, there is a remnant within a remnant. There is a remnant within a remnant. If we read, let's read it real quickly. Let's read Revelation 14. There is a first fruit harvest to come. That is a representation of a first fruit. They are a representation of a first fruit to come. But they also are first fruit. Read Revelation 14 real quickly.
And I looked, and I saw a lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written upon their forehead. And I heard a voice out of the Shamayim, like the voice of many Mayim, and like the voice of loud thunder. And I heard the sound of a harpist playing their harps. And they sang a renewed song before the throne, and before the 4 living creatures and the elders. And no one was able to learn that song except the 144,000 who were redeemed from their Aṛab. They are those who were not defiled with women, for they are maidens. They are those following the Lamb wherever he leads them on. They were redeemed from among men, being first fruits.
Being what?
Being first fruits.
Being what?
Being first fruits to Elohim,
to Elohim,
and to the Lamb.
and to the Lamb. And so as Yahusha represented the first fruit of a future first fruit harvest to come, the 144,000 also represent also a representation of the first fruit of a future first fruit harvest to come. Of a future first fruit harvest to come. Now, Shabu'u, it is a representation of the wedding feast, of the Lamb, of the wheat being gathered into the barn. But there is a first fruit. There is a first fruit within the first fruit that's going to be first fruits first, just as Yahusha ascended first. Just as he ascended first, 144,000 are going to be found standing on Mount Zion as a representation of a future first fruit harvest to come. Now, the Shabu'u is a representation of the first resurrection, of the first fruit harvest to come, of the first resurrection. It is symbolic and for a foreshadowing indeed of the last harvest, of Sukkot, of Tabernacle, which is also a wheat harvest, which is also a wheat harvest. And so some who are not first fruits, who will not resurrect in the first resurrection, but who are going to resurrect in the second resurrection as wheat, are also going to enter into life. It is my belief that some of our righteous forefathers, that some of our righteous parents who were Christians, who did not obey Torah, but had the Torah written upon their heart, they displayed that Torah was written upon their hearts by their works, are going to resurrect in the second resurrection as wheat, and are going to enter into eternal life. I pray that this is making sense. Yeah. So Yahusha rose on first fruit, the first fruits after unleavened bread. Unleavened bread pointing towards him. Unleavened bread is a representation of righteousness. Leaven is a representation of unrighteousness. Unleavened is a representation of righteousness. And so he is unleavened. He is unleavened. And as long as we are in him, we are unleavened. As long as he is in us, we are unleavened. And so that whole feast, all of the feasts indeed, are a representation of him, a point towards him. But he being the first fruits of the barley harvest after the feast of unleavened bread as a representation of a first fruit harvest to come. There then now is a 144,000 who is a remnant within a remnant, who is also a first fruit harvest and a representation of a future first fruit harvest to come, who are going to resurrect in the first resurrection. I pray you're getting this. The 144,000 are going before the first resurrection. Before the first resurrection come, they are a foreshadowing of a future first fruit harvest that is going to rise during the first resurrection, which Shabu'ut is a representation of. Is this making sense? Barashyt. Barashyt. Sometimes I get tongue-tied. Barashyt, as long as it's making sense. Barashyt. So they were celebrating Shabu'ut here. Verse 5. And Ishkak too sent by the hand of Yaqub to Abraham a best thank offering that he might eat and drink. And he ate and drank, and Baruch al-Alyum, who has created Shamayim and earth, who has made all the fat things of the earth, and given them to the children of men, that they might eat and drink, and Barak, their creator. And now I give thanks unto you, my Elohim, because you have caused me to see this day. Behold, I am 175 years, 175 years, an old man and full of days, and all of my days have been unto me shalom. The sword of the adversary has not overcome me in all that you have given me and my children, all the days of my life unto this day. The sword of the adversary has not overcome me in all that you have given me and my children, all the days of my life unto this day. Here's another characteristic of someone walking the ancient path. My Elohim, may your compassion and your shalom be upon your servant and upon the seed of his sons, that they may be to you a chosen nation, an inheritance from amongst all the nations of the earth, from henceforth unto all the days of the generations of the earth, unto all the ages. And he called Yaqub and said, my son, Yaqub, my son, Yaqub. Abraham called Yaqub his son. He called Yaqub his son. Why did he do that? Because Yaqub was like him. Yaqub was like him. Indeed, all of the firstborn sons, all those who call themselves firstborn sons, must have the very same characteristics as Abraham. And if you have the characteristics of Abraham, that means that you have the nature and the character of Yahuwah himself. Because again, a firstborn son looks more like his father, acts more like his father, speaks more like his father than any of the rest of his sons.
Yes.
And so he recognized this in Yaqub and not Esau. He recognized that Yaqub, who was his grandson, but he called him his son because he was more like him. He had the characteristics of his grandfather. He was a firstborn son. And by extension, he had the characteristics of Yahuwah himself. And he called Yaqub and said, my son, Yaqub, may the Elohim of all barak you and strengthen you to do righteousness and his will before him. And may he choose you and your seed that you may become a people for his inheritance according to his will always. And so we understand that Yaqub's name was changed to Yashar'al. And who is Yashar'al? Yashar'al is his firstborn son. Now that means in order to be called a Yashar Alim, that you must have the characteristics of Yaqub. That you must have the characteristics of Abraham. That you must have the characteristics of Ishkak. That you must have the characteristics of Sham and Eber and Nuach and Methuselah and Kanuk and Self and Aḍam. You must have the characteristic of all these righteous fathers. You must have the characteristics of Yahusha himself. You must have the characteristics of Yahuwah in order to be called the firstborn son. You must walk even as the Mashiach walked. You must walk even as Yahuwah walks, present tense, even as he walks. And do you, my son, Yaqub, draw near and kiss me. And he drew near and kissed him. And he said, Baruch be my son, Yaqub, and all the sons of all Ayun, unto all the ages. May Elohim give him to you a seed of righteousness, a seed of righteousness, walking the ancient path. And some of your sons may he separate in the midst of the whole earth. May he separate in the midst of the whole earth. This is coming to pass right now, because we are being separated now in the midst of the earth, scattered amongst the nations. He is separating us in the midst of the whole earth. We are now returning to the ancient path. We're returning, we're awakening, and he is now separating us in the midst of the whole earth. May nations serve you, and all the nations bow themselves before your seed. We talked about this a little bit a couple of Shabbats ago when we read, I believe it was Revelation 3:9. Can you read that real quickly?
Yes, sir.
Revelation 3:9.
See, I am giving up those of the congregation of Hasatan who say they are Yahudim and are not, but lie. See, I am making them come and worship before your feet.
And worship before your feet, and bow before you. And bow before you. Again, may Elohim give unto you a seed of righteousness. And some of your sons may he separate in the midst of the whole earth. And may nations serve you. And all the nations bow themselves before your seed. Before your seed. See, what's not wholly understood is that to bow, to barak. To barak means to what? It means to kneel and it means to bow. It means to kneel and it means to bow. And so Abba has said, I will what? I will barak those who kneel before you, who bow before you. I will barak those, because when the Hamashiach comes back and the remnant of mankind throws up their hands and says, I had enough. Okay, I get it. I've had enough. I've had enough. He's going to cause them to bow before us. To bow before us. I will barak those who barak you, and curse those who curse you. And so barak also means to kneel. It means to kneel down and bow down. And so when they accept this and bow down and kneel and barak us, they're going to be saved. They're going to be delivered. And so the word does not return void. It says here, and all the nations bow themselves before your seed. All the nations are going to barak us. His word does not return void. I will barak those who barak you, and curse those who curse you. You see, deliverance, as always, it is of Yahshua. It is of the Yahudim. For the nations to be delivered, they must attach themselves to us.
Yes.
They must attach themselves to Yahshua. They must. There is no other way. They must. And when he comes back, the remnant of mankind that are going to be saved, they will barak us. They will kneel before us. Yes, they will. Yes, they will. You cannot change his word. Verse 12. Be strong in the presence of men and exercise authority over all the seed of Seth. Then your ways and the ways of your sons will be justified, so that they will become a Kadush nation. May all Ayun give you all the barakut, wherewith he has baruch me. Now, here's another characteristic. If you are walking the ancient path, and if you are a firstborn son, Abraham has said here, may all Ayun give you all the barakut wherewith he has baruch me. There is a text in, I believe it's Galatians, and I want to say it's either Galatians 5 or Galatians 3, when we're talking about the barakah of Abraham. See, Christians like to throw that around. They like to throw it around, you know, that saying, the barakah of Abraham. Abraham was richly baruch. Richly baruch. And this is one of the characteristics of being one of his descendants, of walking the ancient path, is having the barakah of Abraham. If we are walking the ancient path, Abba has promised to give us the barakah of Abraham. And we can only walk the ancient path again if we're children of Abraham. And to be children of Abraham, we cannot be born of flesh. You don't believe me. You don't believe me. You don't believe me. We're talking about now those who are born of the free woman and those who are born of the born woman. Now he spoke through Abraham, actually through Sarah, and said that the seed of the bondwoman shall what? Shall not inherit with the seed of the free woman. The bondwoman being born of the flesh being slavery, the flesh being bondage, and the free and the son of the free woman being born of the Jerusalem above. Now, he was seed of Abraham, being born from above. He was seed of Abraham. And so all of the seed of Abraham are born from above, are born via the Ruach. And if you're born via the Ruach, you now have the ability to walk the ancient path, and that means that the barakah of Abraham should rest upon us. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. If the barakah of Abraham is one of the characteristics of someone walking this ancient path. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. These are not my words. May all Ayun give you all the barakut, wherewith he has baruch me. Again, he's talking to Yaqub, whose name was changed to Yasha'al. So now, he is talking to Yasha'al, the firstborn son. He is talking to Yasha'al here. May all Ayun give you, Yasha'al, all the barakut, wherewith he is baruch me, and wherewith he baruch Nuach and Aḍam. Oh, you thought, see, you taught in these Christian churches, you thought Aḍam was just done. You thought he was done. You thought it was over. You thought it was over for him, didn't you? He loved him. He loved Aḍam. And Aḍam was righteous. He was righteous, and he forgave him. He forgave him of that transgression. He did. Yes, he did. He forgave him. And if we are considered remnant within a remnant, we're going to see our father Aḍam. Yes, we are. We're going to see him in the rain. Yes, we will. Yes, we will. We will see him. And so, again, this ancient path on earth, it started with Aḍam. It started with his firstborn son. And then he taught it to his firstborn son. And then he taught it to his firstborn son. And then he taught it to his firstborn son. All the way down to Abraham. And then to Ishkak. And then to Yaqub. And then to Yahusaf. Actually, to all the 12 sons. All the 12 tribes. But I mentioned Yahusaf because he had the distinction of being called firstborn. He had the distinction of being the caretaker or keeping the chain of custody of doing what? Of renewing the everlasting covenant through firstborn sons. Through firstborn sons. That chain of custody had to continue until it reached Yahusha, who was firstborn son, where it has been renewed now forever through him, through his shed down. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. May all Ayun give you all the Barakut wherewith he is Baruch me, and wherewith he Baruch Nuach, who was the firstborn son, and Aḍam, who was firstborn son. May they rest on the sacred head of your seed from generation to generation forever. Again, I need to reiterate this. The firstborn, in accordance with the law of inheritance, the instruction of inheritance, it is the firstborn who gets the inheritance. This is why Yasha'al will inherit the earth, will inherit the possessions of our father. We will get all of his possessions as firstborn. And so for the remnant of mankind to inherit, again, that inheritance was given to who? To Abraham and to his seed forever. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. It was given to Abraham and his seed forever. Abraham was not born of flesh and blood. None of his firstborn were. Because in order to be considered his firstborn, you must be born from him. He is not flesh and blood. We must be born from him, from Yahuwah, in order to be considered his son. In order to be considered his son. And so he gave an inheritance to Abraham and to his seed forever. And it was through Ishkak that his seed would be called. And Ishkak was not born of flesh and blood. He was born of Ruach. He was born of Ruach. So the inheritance goes to firstborns. Goes to his firstborn son. And to his firstborn son alone, who is Yasha'al. And may he cleanse you from all unrighteousness and impurity, that you may be forgiven all the transgressions which you have committed ignorantly. And may he strengthen you and barak you. And may you inherit what? The whole earth. The whole earth. Do you not understand that through Yasha'al, the reign and the inheritance of the earth is being restored? The inheritance that he gave to who? That he gave to Aḍam, his firstborn son. And that inheritance was passed down from that firstborn son of Aḍam throughout the generations to his firstborn son, Yasha'al. The reign of the earth is being restored to us. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And so for mankind to inherit, they've got to become a son. They've got to become a firstborn and engraft into Yasha'al through the Ruach HaKadosh, who is Yahushua HaMashiach, Barak Yahuwah, and obey the very same Torah and walk the very same ancient path that our ancient fathers have walked, that began on earth with Aḍam, but that began where it has no beginning in eternity, because it's always been in eternity. Because before anything was made, Yahuwah walked to and fro in eternity. He walked to and fro on the ancient path before anything was created. And so if we are to be his son, we must walk like him. We must look like him. We must talk like him if we want to inherit. And may he renew his covenant with you. And may he renew his covenant with you. Again, to reiterate, the covenant is only renewed with firstborn sons. It is only renewed with firstborn sons because it was originally made with the firstborn son, Aḍam. And then it was renewed throughout the generations with firstborn sons until it got to Yasha'al, his firstborn son. And it was renewed with him. And then it was renewed with Yahusuf. And then it was renewed with Ephraim. And then on down to the firstborn son till we get to Yahusha, who came as firstborn son, who was the firstborn son of Yahusuf and Maryam. It was renewed with him once and for all. Now it is eternally renewed and can never be broken. It can never be broken because it has been renewed by his own shed dam. And may he renew his covenant with you, that you may be to him a nation for his inheritance, for all the ages, and that he may be to you and to your seed in Elohim in truth and righteousness throughout all the days of the earth. And do you, my son Yaqub, remember my words and observe the commandments of Abraham, your father. Separate yourselves from the nations. Separate yourselves from the nations. Again, this is the ancient path. We must be separate. We must be Kadush as he is Kadush. It is written in 2 Corinthians, the 6th chapter, beginning at verse 14. Wherefore, come out from among them. Be ye what? Be ye separate. Touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. This is the ancient path. This is the ancient path. Separate yourself from the nations, and eat not with them. And eat not with them. Listen. We have to be led. We have to be led with respect to who we eat with. Because to break bread with someone is to what? Be in agreement with them. That is to be in agreement with them. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That is to be in agreement with them. So we must be led to even break bread with the nations. We have to be led. Abba must lead us. Now Yahusha himself ate with criminals. He did. He ate with criminals because he came not for the well, but for the sick. And so he ate with criminals. So with that said, we must follow that example. He was strategic when he ate with them. He just didn't eat to be eaten. He ate because he was fishing. He was a fisherman of men. And so we must be strategic when we sit down to break bread with them. Because again, breaking bread is making an agreement. You make agreements by breaking bread. And do you, my son Yaqub, remember my words and observe the commandments of Abraham, your father. Separate yourself from the nations and eat not with them, and do not according to their works, and become not their associate. For their works are unclean, and all their ways are a pollution and an abomination and uncleanness. So we've got to stay on the ancient path. All of their ways are abominable. All of their ways are unclean. And we must separate ourselves from them. If you aspire to walk this ancient path, we must be separate. Wherefore, come out from among them. Be ye separate. Touch not what is unclean, and he will receive us. They offer their sacrifices to the dead, and they worship evil Ruach-ut. And they eat over the graves, and all their works are vanity and nothingness. They have no heart to understand, and their eyes do not see what their works are. They have no heart to understand. They don't want to understand the ancient path. Oh, they say it's bondage. They say it's slavery. They said no one can do it. Oh, you can't do it. You can't keep the Torah. Nobody can keep the Torah. That's what they want you to know. That's what they want you to think. That no one can keep it. Not understanding that we keep the Torah in Ruach and in truth. We don't just keep the letter. We understand what the letter points towards. We understand what the letter points towards. Because you can wear zits all you want in accordance with the letter. But unless you understand that you are a living tabernacle, and that the Ruach of Yahuwah lives within you, and that you would conduct yourself as a living tabernacle, you're still going to die. You're still going to die, irrespective of how long your zitzis are. You can not sow your garden with diverse seed. You can do that all you want. But unless you understand that that points towards separating ourselves from the unclean and not mixing with that which is unclean, you're still going to die. You're still going to die. Oh, we can keep Torah. We can keep it in Ruach and in truth. And some of the latter we still keep. Barak Yahuwah. And some of the latter we still keep. They have no heart to understand, and their eyes do not see what their works are, and how they err in saying to a piece of wood, you are my Elohim, and to a stone, you are my Adani, and you are my deliverer, and they have no heart. And they have no heart. Indeed, the heart is wicked above all things. It is the heart is deceitful above all things. It is desperately wicked. Who can know it? Who can know it? And so those who are walking the ancient path, what? We ain't led by our heart. No, we're not. We're not led by our emotions. We're led by the Ruach. What does the text say? Those who are led by the Ruach of Yahuwah, these are the sons of Yahuwah. These are the sons and daughters of Yahuwah who are led by the Ruach, not by your wicked heart. We follow the Ruach. We don't follow our emotions. Barak Yahuwah. But the nations are led by their hearts. They're led by their wicked hearts. And as for you, my son Yaqub, may all Ayun help you, and the Elohim of of heaven, or Shamayim, barak you, and remove you from their uncleanness and from all their error. I pray you understand. He's talking to Yaqub, but he's talking to Yashar'al because Yaqub's name was changed to Yashar'al. And keep us from all their error. And he's doing it. He's doing it. Look, we are in the midst of Babel. We are in the midst of Mashraim. And just look how Abba is waking us up and turning our hearts back to Torah and turning our hearts back to the ancient path. Look what he's doing. He's remembering. He remembers the promise and the oath that he made to our fathers, to Abraham and to Ishak and to Yaqub. He remembers. We break oaths, re-break covenants, but he does not. Barak Yahuwah. Be you aware, my son, Yaqub, of taking a woman from any seed of the daughters of Canaan. For all his seed is to be rooted out of the earth. Indeed, when he talks about not sowing your garden with diverse seed, lest the fruit of your produce be defiled. Be defiled. You think he's just talking about a garden? Sure he is. Sure he is. Sure he is. And that in the letter, we are to obey the letter. We are to obey it. We're not to sow our garden with diverse seed. That only produces confusion and chaos. We're to put each respective seed in its prospective hole. But do you not understand that there is a sud, that there is a mystery to what he's trying to teach us in that instruction? And that is that, man, you do not sow your righteous seed. You do not sow your righteous seed in a field that is unworthy of your seed. Because all you're going to produce, your seed is going to be polluted. Your seed, your fruit, the fruit of that ground is going to be polluted. You're not to mix seed. We're not to mix seed with the wicked. You don't marry. You don't intermingle with the wicked. You don't produce seed because your seed, you're risking having the fruit of that seed being defiled. We don't mix. We still don't mix. Do not become unevenly yoked with unbelievers. He said it. This is ancient. Wherefore come out from among them. Be ye separate. Touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. And so we don't mix seed with the wicked. We don't mix our seed with the wicked, lest the fruit of our seed be defiled. Verse 21. For owing to the transgression of Canaan erred, and all his seed shall be destroyed from off the earth, and all the remnant thereof, and none springing from him shall be saved on the day of judgment. And as for all the worshippers of idols and the profane, there shall be no expectation for them in the land of the living. And for all the worshippers of idols and the profane, there shall be no expectation for them in the land of the living, and there shall be no remembrance of them on earth. Somebody read real quickly Revelation 21. But as for the cowardly, start there.
But as for the cowardly and untrustworthy and abominable and murderers and those who whore and drug sorcerers and idolaters.
What? Come on.
Idolaters
Mm-hmm.
and all the false.
Mm-hmm.
Their part
What?
is in the lake which burns with fire and sulfur.
Oh, they think it's a joke. Verse 22 again. And as for all the worshippers of idols and the profane, there shall be no expectation for them in the land of the living, and there shall be no remembrance of them on the earth. For they shall descend into Sheol, and into the place of condemnation shall they go. As the children of Sodom, who were burned alive, were taken away from the earth, so will, being burned alive just like them, all those who worship idols be taken away. See, they think it's a joke. They think it's a joke. And they have no heart to understand. They reject the truth. They reject the Torah, thinking that they are in truth.
Yes.
Verse 23. Fear not, my son, Yaqub, and be not dismayed, O son of Abraham. May all Ayun guard you from destruction, and from all the paths of error may he deliver you. Now, the only way to walk this path again is via his Ruach. If we are walking in the Ruach, they don't believe me. Romans chapter 8. Romans chapter 8, verse 1.
There is Then now no condemnation to those who are in Mashiach Yahusha, who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the root.
But according to the root. Fear not, my son Yaqub, and be not dismayed, O son of Abraham. You ain't a son of Abraham if you're not operating the same ruach that he operated in. May all Ayun guard you from destruction. How does he do this? Via his ruach. Via his ruach. And from all the paths of error may he deliver you. This house have I built for myself, that I might put my name upon it in the earth. It is given to you. What house? The house of Yashar'al, the house of Yaqub. This house. It is given to you and to your seed forever. And for those of you who are listening on YouTube and may listen later on, the house of Yaqub is not all inclusive. It doesn't exclude the stranger. It has always included the stranger. If you in graft and you, as in the words of Ruth, our Elohim becomes your Elohim. My people become your people. Where we go, you go, and where we die, you die. And you obey the very same Torah and walk the very same ancient path that we are walking. And you are operating in the very same ruach that we are operating in. You are no longer a stranger or a Gentile. You are a fellow citizen. You are Yashalim, and you are an adopted son, a firstborn son. And then you too, Barak Yahuwah, will inherit. This house, one house, the house of Yashar'al, have I built for myself, that I might put my name upon it in the earth, because we represent our fathers, our righteous fathers. We ought to look just like Abraham. If you're walking this ancient path, and if you're and if we are his descendants, if we are Yashralim, we ought to look just like him. We ought to look just like Yahusha. We ought to look just like Yahuwah. It is given to you and your seed forever, and it will be named the house of Abraham. It is given to you and to your seed forever, for you will build my house and establish my name before Elohim forever. Your seed and your name will stand throughout all generations of the earth, provided that we are walking the ancient path, the very same ancient path that he walked. And he ceased commanding him and barakah him. And the two lay together on one bed. And Yaqub slept in the bosom of Abraham, his father's father. And he kissed him 7 times. And his affection and his heart celebrated over him. And he baruch him with all his heart, and said, All Ayun, the Elohim of all, and creator of all, who brought me forth from Ur of the Kasdim, that he might give me this land to inherit it forever, and that I might establish a Kadush seed, Baruch be Elohim forever. And he baruch Yaqub, and said, My son, over whom with all my heart and all my affection I celebrate. May your favor and your compassion be lifted up upon him and upon his seed always. His seed always. Again, here is another characteristic. If you are seed of Abraham and seed of Yaqub and walk in the ancient path, verse 28 says here, And he baruch Yaqub and said, My son, over whom with all my heart and my affection I celebrate. May your favor and your compassion be lifted up upon him and upon his seed always. And do not forsake him. He's praying to Abba. He's praying to Abba. And do not forsake him, nor put him at naught from henceforth unto the days of eternity. Oh, we got to have some characteristics. We got to have some fruit. We got to have some characteristics if you're walking this ancient path. There ought to be some favor following us if we're truly walking the ancient path like our father Abraham did. And do not forsake him, nor put him at naught from henceforth unto the days of eternity. And may your eyes be open upon him and upon his seed, that you may guard him and barak him, and may separate him as a nation for your inheritance. Oh, there ought to be some characteristics associated with us who are walking the ancient path. And barak him with all your barakut from henceforth unto all the days of eternity. And renew your covenant. And renew your covenant and your favor with him. and with his seed, according to all your good pleasure, unto all the generations of the earth. He didn't renew his covenant with nobody else. It's not renewed with anyone else but his firstborn son. They don't believe me. While I take a bathroom break, turn to Jeremiah chapter 31 and read verses 31 through 33.
31.
Jeremiah 31,
31.
verse 31 through 33.
See, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when I shall make a renewed covenant with the house of Yasharal and with the house of Yehuda, not like the covenant I made with their fathers in the day when I strengthened their hand to bring them out of the land of Matat'Yahu. My covenant which they broke, though I was a husband to them, declares Yahuwah. For this is the covenant I shall make with the house of Yasharal after those days, declares Yahuwah. I shall put my Torah in their inward parts and write it on their hearts, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people.
Only renews with firstborn. He only renews with firstborn. With firstborn sons. He doesn't renew with nobody else. He only renews with firstborn sons. Read that again. I want to show him something.
See, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when I shall make a renewed covenant with the house of Yasharal and with the house of Yehuda. Not like the covenant I made with their fathers in the day when I strengthened their hand to bring them out of the land of Matat'Yahu. My covenant which they broke, though I was a husband to them, declares Yahuwah. For this is the covenant.
Listen, for this is the covenant. Listen, this is the covenant. Read.
I shall make with the house of Yasharal after those days, declares Yahuwah.
Come on.
I shall put my Torah in their inward parts.
I shall put my Torah in their inward parts. I shall put my Torah in their inward parts. In other words, he will circumcise our heart. In other words, the Ruach HaKadosh will come in and circumcise our hearts and write his Torah upon our hearts, whereby giving us a love for Torah and a willingness and an ability to obey Torah. Moreover, as a man enters a woman, whereby entering into covenant with her, when a Ruach HaKadosh enters us, yes, it's a marriage. It's a marriage. When a Ruach HaKadosh enters us, as a man enters a woman, we become married and joined to him. We become one with him. We are ushered into covenant with him. If he has not done this, if he has not entered you via his Ruach HaKadosh and written his Torah upon your heart, you are not in covenant with him. Read that again. This is the covenant.
For this is the covenant I shall make with the house of Yasharal after those days, declares Yahuwah. I shall put my Torah in their inward parts and write it on their hearts.
And write it on their heart.
And I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people.
And they shall be my people. You see, another little known thing about circumcision. You see, an uncircumcised man is considered to be unclean. The Abarit word alludes to it being a matter of uncleanness if you're uncircumcised. If you're uncircumcised, it is a matter of uncleanness. But when you are circumcised, it is akin to your nakedness being covered. To nakedness being covered. Indeed, this is what a husband, this is what is required of a husband to do what? To clothe his wife, to provide food for his wife, and to provide marital rights for his wife. And so when we become his wife, he circumcises our hearts. In other words, he clothes us. He clothes us to where we are no longer naked. If you ain't his wife, he hadn't circumcised you, and you're still naked. He don't have to clothe someone who doesn't belong to him. If you're not his wife, he don't have to give you clothing. But if you're his wife, he has to give you clothing. He has to circumcise your wicked heart. Yes, he does. And write his Torah upon it and enter into covenant with you. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And I keep emphasizing that because some of you keep rejecting the Ruach HaKodesh. You keep blaspheming him. You keep rejecting him, thinking that you're somehow his wife. How you going to be his wife when he had relations with you? He's got to have relations with you. He's got to enter you. You ain't his wife. He don't even know you. He don't know you. Matthew 7:21 through 23. He don't know you. He never knew you.
Not everyone who says to me, Master, Master, shall enter into the reign of the Shamayim, but he who is doing the desire of my Father in the Shamayim. Many shall say to me in that day, Master, Master, have we not prophesied in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and done many mighty works in your name? And then I shall declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who work lawlessness.
I never knew you. I never knew you. Understand this. Understand this. Genesis chapter 24. Chapter 24, and read down towards the bottom.
And Yitzhak went out to meditate.
Read that, starting right there.
And Yitzhak went out to meditate in the field in the evening, and he lifted his eyes and looked and saw the camels coming. And Rivkah lifted her eyes, and when she saw Yitzhak, she dismounted from her camel. And she had said to the servant, Who is this man walking in the field to meet us? And the servant said, It is my master. So she took a veil and covered herself. And the servant told Yitzhak all the matters he had done. And Yitzhak brought her into his mother Sarah's tent, and he took Rivkah, and she became his wife.
She took her. In other words, he knew her. In other words, he knew her. He knew her carnally. And so the Hamashiach says, I never knew you. I never knew you. I never entered you. I never knew you. I never had relations with you. I never took you. I never knew you. I never had relations with you. They don't believe me. Matthew chapter 25.
Starting at 1.
Mm-hmm.
Then the reign of the Shamayim shall be compared to 10 maidens who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom.
Mm-hmm.
And 5 of them were wise and 5 foolish.
Mm-hmm.
Those who were foolish, having taken their lamps, took no oil.
Wait, they had the lamp, they had the word, they had Torah, but they had no oil. You can't obey Torah without the anointing, without oil. You can't. All you have is the letter. If you have no oil, all you have is the letter. And you know the letter kills. The letter kills. And so they had the Torah. They had the lamp. Oh, thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. They had the Torah. They had the word, but they had no oil in order to light the Torah, in order to provide fuel for the light of Torah. They had no oil. Come on.
But the wise took oil in their containers.
But they took oil. They took anointing. They took anointing. They took the anointing of the Ruach HaKodesh to provide fuel for the light of Torah, whereby giving them an ability and a willingness to obey Torah. Come on.
Now while the bridegroom took time, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight a cry was heard, See, the bridegroom is coming. Go out to meet him. Then all those maidens rose up and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, Give us of your oil, because our lamps are going out. But the wise answered, saying, No, indeed, there would not be enough for us and you. Instead, go to those who sell and buy for yourselves. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him, to the wedding feast,
Come on.
and the door was shut.
Okay, stop right there. They went into the wedding feast. Now let's talk about an Abari marriage. Let's talk about an Abari marriage. An Abari marriage begins with what? Begins with a betrothal. It begins with the man purchasing the woman. As the Hamashiach has purchased us, but not with perishable things like gold and silver. He has purchased us with his very own blood. He has purchased us. And so it begins with a betrothal. And then comes what? And then comes the marriage feast. And then comes the consummation of the marriage. This is the proper order for an Abarit marriage. And so they went in. They went in. What does it continue to say here?
And later the other maidens also came, saying,
Uh-huh.
Master, open up for us.
Uh-huh.
But he answering said, Truly I say to you.
What?
Truly I say to you.
Uh-huh.
I do not know you.
I don't know you. I don't know you. And he didn't know them because he had not entered them. He didn't know them. He hadn't had relations with them. He hadn't had relations with them. In order to have oil, you have to have the anointing of the Ruach HaKadosh, whereby he has known us, and we know him. And we know him. Otherwise, he doesn't know you, and you can't keep Torah. As he spoke in Matthew chapter 7, verse 23, I never knew you. You depart from me, you who work lawlessness. You who work lawlessness. And so some of you continue to reject the Ruach HaKadosh. You continue to blaspheme, thinking somehow that you're going to make it in without him. You're not. This path is hard. It's hard, and it is impossible to walk it without the Ruach HaKadosh. Our ancient fathers, our righteous fathers could not have walked it without oil, without having the Ruach HaKadosh inside. Verse 28 again. And he Baruch Yaqub and said, My son, over whom with all my heart and my affection I celebrate. May your favor and your compassion be lift up upon him and upon his seed always. And do not forsake him, nor set him at naught from henceforth unto the days of eternity. And may your eyes be open upon him and upon his seed, that you may guard him and barak him, and may separate him as a nation for your inheritance. And barak him with all your barakut, from henceforth until all the days of eternity, and renew your covenant and your favor with him. And again, if he has not entered you, if he has not entered you as a man enters a woman, he has not renewed his covenant with you. The covenant is not renewed with you. It's only renewed when he enters us as a man enters a woman and enters into covenant with us, and circumcises our heart, and puts clothing on us, and covers the nakedness of our uncircumcised heart. If he hasn't done that, he doesn't know you. He hasn't known you. He hasn't had relations with you. He hasn't had relations with you. And barak him with all your barakut from henceforth until all the days of eternity, and renew your covenant and your favor with him and with his seed according to all your good pleasure unto all the generation of the earth. Again, if he has done this, if he has entered you, you have become his son. You have become his son. His sons are not born of flesh and blood. If he has entered you, you have become his son and his daughter. And that means that you will inherit. That means that you will inherit, because flesh and blood will not and cannot inherit the reign of Shamayim. Chapter 23. This is the last chapter. Chapter 23. And he placed two fingers of Yaqub on his eyes. And he Baruch the Elohim of Elohim. And he covered his face and stretched out his feet and slept the sleep of eternity and was gathered to his fathers. And notwithstanding all this, Yaqub was lying in his bosom and knew not that Abraham, his father's father, was dead. And Yaqub awoke from his sleep, and behold, Abraham was cold as ice. And he said, Father, Father, but there was none that spoke, and he knew that he was dead. And he arose from his bosom and ran and told Rebekah, his mother. And Rebekah went to Ishkak in the night and told him, and they went together, and Yaqub with them, and a lamp was in his hand. And when they had gone in, they found Abraham lying dead. And Ishkak fell on the face of his father and wept and kissed him. The voices were heard in the house of Abraham, And Ishmael his son arose and went to Abraham his father, and wept over Abraham his father, he and all the house of Abraham. And they wept with a great weeping. And his sons Itzchak and Ishmael buried him in the double cave near Sharah his woman, and they wept for him 40 days, all the men of his house, and Itzchak and Ishmael, and all their sons, and all the sons of Keturah in their places, and the days of weeping for Abraham were ended. And he lived 3 jubilees and 4 weeks of years, 175 years, and completed the days of his life, being old and full of days. For the days of the forefathers of their life were 19 jubilees, and after the flood they began to grow less than 19 jubilees, and to decrease in jubilees, and to grow old quickly, and to be full of their days by reason of manifold tribulation, and the wickedness of their ways, with the exception of Abraham. For Abraham was perfect in all his deeds with YAHUAH. Does not YAHUAH in the Torah command us to be kadosh as he is kadosh?
Yes.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Does not read Matthew 5, the very last verse. Matthew chapter 5, the very last verse.
Therefore, be perfect, as your Father in the Shamayim is perfect.
Be perfect, as your Father in the Shamayim is perfect. You call yourself a son or daughter of Abraham? We must be perfect, as YAHUAH is perfect. We don't make excuses like Christians. Oh, he knows my heart. Oh, that's impossible to do. No, he's already told us that this walk is hard. It's not easy. And we cannot do it unless we're born from above. We must be perfect. To walk the ancient path means to be perfect as our Father in Shamayim is perfect. It means to walk like Abraham. Verse 10 again. For Abraham was perfect in all his deeds with YAHUAH, and well-pleasing in righteousness all the days of his life. And behold, he did not complete 4 jubilees in his life, when it grown old by reason of the wickedness, and was full of his days. And all the generations which shall arise from this time until the day of the great judgment shall grow old quickly, before they complete 2 jubilees, and their knowledge shall forsake them by reason of their old age, and all their knowledge shall vanish away. And in those days, if a man live a jubilee and a half of years, they shall say regarding him, he has lived long. And this is 75 years. A jubilee is 50 years. Half a jubilee is 25 years. And so 70 have he given us, 80 by reason of strength. 80 by reason of strength. And in those days, if a man live a jubilee and a half of years, 75 years, they shall say regarding him, he has lived long, and the greater part of his days are pain and sorrow and tribulation, and there is no shalom. For calamity follows on calamity, and wound on wound, and tribulation on tribulation, and evil report on evil report, and illness on illness, and all evil judgments such as these, one with another, illness and overthrow, and snow and frost and ice, and fever and chills, and torpor, and famine, and death, and sword and captivity, and all kinds of calamities and pains. And all these shall come on an evil generation, which transgresses on the earth. Their works are uncleanness, and fornication, and pollution, and abominations. Then they shall say, the days of the forefathers were many, even until 1,000 years, and were good. But behold, the days of our life, if a man has lived many, are 80 years, and 10, 70 years. And if he is strong, 80, 80 years. And those evil, and there is no shalom in the days of this evil generation. And in that generation, the sons shall convict their fathers and their elders of crime and unrighteousness, and of the words of their mouth, and the great wickedness which they perpetrate, and concerning their forsaking the covenant which YAHUAH made between them and him, that they should observe and do some of his commands. Part of them. Half of them. A quarter of them. A fraction of them. 99% of them. That they should observe and do all his commandments. and his ordinance, and some of his Torah,
Oh.
part of his Torah,
Oh.
half of his Torah,
all,
all his Torah, without departing either to the right hand or the left. The moment we turn to the right or to the left of the ancient path, instantly we are walking in uncleanness. Because there is nothing clean but Torah. Everything contrary to Torah is falsehood and uncleanness. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. For all have done evil, and every mouth speaks iniquity, and all their works are uncleanness and an abomination, and all their ways are pollution. That is that broad path that leads to destruction, uncleanness and destruction. Behold, the earth shall be destroyed on account of all their works, and there shall be no seed of the vine, and no oil, for their works are altogether trustworthless, and they shall all perish together, beasts and cattle and birds, and all the fish of the sea, on account of the children of men. And they shall strive one with another, the young with the old, and the old with the young, the poor with the rich, the lowly with the great, and the beggar with the prince, on account of the Torah, and the covenant. For they have forgotten the commandment, and covenant, and feasts, and months, and Shabbat'ut, and jubilees, and all judgments. But we should rejoice. We should rejoice because now in the land of our captivity, we have remembered the Torah. We have remembered the everlasting covenant. We've remembered the commandments. We've remembered the covenant and the feasts and the months and the Shabbat'ut and the jubilees and all the judgments. We've remembered now in the land of our captivity, and we have no more excuse. For us, if we turn from the way now, after he has revealed the way to us, there is no more restoring us to repentance. There is no more restoring us to repentance. We will trample on the very dung of Yahushua HaMashiach if we do so. And they shall stand, and they shall stand swords and war to turn them back. And they shall stand swords and war to turn them back into the way. You see, this is the meaning, this is the purpose of the great distress. The great distress is going to be sent upon the earth to do what? To turn the hearts of men back to righteousness. To turn them back from lawlessness and Torahlessness and uncleanness. To turn them back to righteousness. This is the purpose of the great distress. You see, you and I, we have turned now. We have turned now. And since we have turned now, there is no need for Abba to subject us to the great distress. Yes. He is now trying to keep us from the hour of trial. Those who have turned now, there is no need for the great distress. The great distress is going to be sent to turn men back to Torah, to turn men back to righteousness. We have turned now, and so there's no need for it for us. There is no need, provided that you have turned back to the ancient path in Ruach and in truth. And they shall stand swords and war to turn them back into the way, but they shall not return until much blood has been shed on the earth, one by another. And those who have escaped shall not return from their wickedness to the way of righteousness, the way of righteousness, the way of righteousness, which is a road. Darak meaning road. It is a road. It is the ancient path. It is the ancient path. It is the ancient road. Stand at the crossroads. Stand at the road and look. Stand in the way and look and ask for the good way and walk in it and find rest for your nafash. And those who have escaped shall not return from their wickedness to the way of righteousness, which is the ancient path, the ancient way, the way everlasting, which is Torah. But they shall all exalt themselves to deceit and wealth, that they may each take all that is in his neighbor's. And they shall name the great name, but not in truth. But not in truth. Indeed, there are many who call upon the name of Yahuwah, but not in truth, because they have no reverence for him. They have no reverence for him. They don't even have reverence for his name. They don't even have reverence. And every time they open their polluted mouth to call upon his name, they pollute his name. They pollute it. They profane his name. Every time they open their wicked mouth. and you all you're doing is stacking judgment upon yourself, calling upon his name unworthily, but not in truth and not in righteousness. And they shall defile the kadush, the most separated place, with their uncleanness and the corruption of their pollution. And a great punishment shall befall the deeds of this generation from Yahuwah. This is that great distress that is coming upon the whole earth to try it, in order to turn the hearts of men, to turn their wicked hearts back to righteousness, back to Torah, back to the ancient path. And he will give them over to the sword and to judgments and to captivity and to be plundered and devoured. And he will wake up against them the criminals of the other nations, who have neither compassion, who have no compassion. As I read this, I see revelation coming to life for myself. For me, as I'm reading this, I'm reading about the great distress. And I'm reading Revelation, and I'm reading Matthew chapter 24 as I'm reading this. It should come to life for you too, if you've read the text. And who shall respect the person of none, neither old nor young, nor anyone, for they are more wicked and strong to do evil than all the children of men. And they shall use violence against Yashar'al, and transgression against Yaqub. And much blood shall be shed upon the earth, and there shall be none to gather, and none to bury. This is the remnant. This is not the remnant within the remnant. This is the remnant that is spoken about in Revelation 12. The remnant of the seed of the woman who was brought to the wilderness, to a safe place, to be kept for 3½ years. But this is the seed of the woman that are going to be left to endure the great distress. In those days they shall cry aloud and call and pray that they may be saved from the hand of the criminals, the other nations, but none shall be saved. And the heads of the children shall be white with gray hair, and the child of 3 weeks shall appear old like a man of 100 years. And their stature shall be destroyed by tribulation and oppression, and their stature shall be destroyed by tribulation, the great distress and oppression. And in those days the children shall seek, and in those days the children shall begin to study the Torah. Indeed, this is the purpose of tribulation, to turn the hearts of men back to Torah. And in those days the children shall begin to study the Torah, and to seek the commandments, and to return to what? The path of righteousness, the ancient path, the ancient way. And the days shall begin to grow many, and increase amongst the children of men, till the days draw nigh to 1,000 years. 1,000 years. This speaks of the millennial reign. This speaks to the 1,000-year millennial reign. And to a greater number of years than before was the number of the days. And there shall be no old man, nor one who is satisfied with his days, for all shall be as children, excuse me, and youths. And all their days shall complete and live in shalom and in gladness. And there shall be no Satan. And there shall be no Satan. There shall be no Satan, because Satan is going to be what? Bound for 1,000 years. Nor any evil destroyer, for all their days shall be the days of barakah and healing. And at that time Yahuwah will heal his servants, and they shall rise up and see great shalom, and drive out their adversaries. And the righteous shall see and be thankful, and celebrate with gladness forever and ever. And shall see all their judgments and all their curses on their enemies. This is reminiscent of Deuteronomy 30. This is a precept to this is Deuteronomy chapter 30. And their bones shall rest in the earth, and their ruach shall have much gladness, and they shall know that it is Yahuwah who executes judgment, and shows compassion to hundreds and thousands, and to all that love him. And do you, Masha, write down these words, for thus are they written, and they record them on the heavenly tablets for testimony, for generations forever. For generations forever. We must return to the ancient path. We must return to the ancient path. And we must walk as our ancient father Abraham walked, and as our ancient fathers walked. It is imperative in this season, that we return to the ancient path Not only because we love Abba, but if we return to the ancient path in this season, Abba has promised to keep us from the hour of trial. Again, the hour of trial, the purpose of the hour of trial is to turn men's hearts from wickedness back to Torah. If we have already returned to the ancient path, there is no need for us. There is no need for us to go through the hour of trial. There is no need if you've already returned to the ancient path in Ruach and in truth. There is no need for it. And so, reading now, I'm going to wind this down. I'm going to read some from Daniel chapter 7, but I'm not going to read all of it. I have it in my notes, and so I don't know what verse it is. Daniel chapter 7, I'm going to start where it says, "And see, eyes like the eyes of a man were in this horn, and a mouth speaking great words." "And I was looking unto thrones were set up, and the ancient Atik, the Abarit Atik, the ancient Atik of days was seated. His garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like clean wool. His throne was flames of fire, its wheels burning fire. A stream of fire was flowing and coming forth from his presence, and 1,000 served him, and 10,000 and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judge was seated, and the books were open. I was looking, then, because of the sound of the great words which the horn was speaking, I was looking until the beast was killed, and his body destroyed and given to the burning fire. And the rest of the beasts had their rule taken away, but a lengthening of life was given to them for a season and a time. I was looking in the night vision and saw one like the son of Anush, which means man, coming with the clouds of the Shamayim. And he came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And to him was given rulership and preciousness and a reign, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His rule is an everlasting rule, which shall not pass away, and his reign, that which shall not be destroyed. As for me, Daniel, my ruach was pierced within my body, and the visions of my head alarmed me. I drew near to the one of those who stood by, and asked them the certainty of all this. And he spoke to me and made known to me the interpretation of the matters. These great beasts, which are four sovereigns which rise up from the earth. Then the set-apart ones of all Ayun shall receive the reign, and possess the reign forever, even forever and ever. Then I desired for certainty concerning the fourth beast, which was different from all the others, very fearsome, with his teeth of iron and his nails of bronze, which devoured, crushed, and trampled down the rest with his feet. And concerning the 10 horns that were on his head, and of the other horn that came up, before which 3 fell. This horn which had eyes and a mouth which spoke great words, whose appearance was greater than his fellows. I was looking, and his horn was fighting against the Kadosh ones, and was prevailing against them. These Kadosh ones here again are the ones that we read about in Revelation 12, the remnant of the seed of the woman that was brought into the wilderness. The remnant within the remnant who was brought into the wilderness, this is the remnant of that seed. Until the Ancient of Days came, and right ruling was given to the Kadosh ones of all Ayun. And the time came, and the Kadosh ones took possession of the reign. This is what he said. The fourth beast is the fourth reign on earth. This is Rome, which is different from all other reigns. And it devours all the earth, tramples it down, and crushes it. And the 10 horns are the 10 sovereigns from this reign. They shall rise, and another shall rise after them. And it is different from the first ones. And it humbles 3 sovereigns. And it speaks words against all Ayun. And it wears out the Kadosh ones of all Ayun. And it intends to change appointed times and law, as Rome has done. And they are given into his hand for time and times and a half a time, 3 1/2 years, 42 months, when the remnant within the remnant has been brought to the wilderness. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away its rule, to cut off and to destroy unto the end. And the reign and the rulership and the greatness of the reigns under the Shamayim shall be given to the people, the Kadosh ones of all Argum. His reign is an everlasting reign, and all rulership shall serve and obey him. This is the end of the matter. As for me, Dunny all, my thoughts greatly alarmed me, and my color changed, and I kept the matter in my heart. I read that, Mashpaka, because there Yahuwah is referred to as the Ancient of Days. The Ancient of Days. It is Strong's number H6267. It is the Abarit Atik. Atik. And it means old or ancient or antique. Antique. It means old or ancient or antique. And so when we talk about the ancient path, the ancient path is Yahuwah. He is the Ancient of Days. He is Torah. He is the living Torah. And to walk the ancient path means to what? Means to walk in him, means for him to be in us and us in him, and walking in him. Walking the ancient path with us, with him in us. Otherwise, it is impossible. Otherwise, it is impossible. So we must understand that everything in this world, inclusive of religion, is contrary to the ancient path. Everything in it is contrary to the ancient path. To walk the ancient path, Mashpaka, will cause us to be peculiar or strange. It will cause us to be rejected. To truly walk this ancient path, people are going to think that we are peculiar and strange, and they are going to reject us. We will look like we just stepped out of a time machine. Yes, we will. Yes, we will. We just left the store. When was that? Yesterday. And these Kadu sisters, they came in with their long dresses on and had their heads wrapped up, looking like they had just stepped out of a time machine. But it was a sweet smelling aroma into Abba.
Yes.
A sweet smelling aroma into its nostrils. And so as we read here in Micah chapter 6, and we're closing this down. Micah chapter 6, verse 8. Micah chapter 6, verse 8. He has declared to you, O man, what is good. And what does Yahuwah require of you? But to do right, and to love loving commitment, and to what? And to walk humbly with your Elohim. To walk humbly with your Elohim. So to walk the ancient path, you've heard Abba speak through me, that the ancient path is the servant's road. This is the servant's road. This is the road of obedience. You see, you cannot obey without what? Without submitting yourself. Without submitting yourself. And to submit yourself means to what? Means to humble yourself. It means to humble yourself. And so we cannot walk this path without submitting and without humbling ourselves. It is impossible to walk the ancient path without humbling ourselves. John chapter 6, verse 38 and 39. John chapter 6, verse 38 and 39. Because I've come down out of the Shamayim, not to do my own desire, but the desire of him who sent me. This is the desire of the Father who sent me, that all he has given me, I should not lose it, but shall raise it in the last day. And so also in following the example of the HaMashiach, walking the ancient path is to give up our desires for the desire of the Father. We no longer seek our desire. We seek primarily the desire of the Father, his desire and his desire alone. We must follow his example. Deuteronomy chapter 8. Deuteronomy chapter 8. Deuteronomy chapter 8. Verses 1 through 6. God should do every command which I command you today, that you might live, and shall increase, and go in, and shall possess the land of which YAHUAH swore to your fathers. And you shall remember that YAHUAH your Elohim led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble you, prove you, to know what is in your heart, whether you guard his commands or not. And he humbled you, and let you suffer hunger, and fed you with manna which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, to make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of YAHUAH. Your garments did not wear out on you, nor did your foot swell these 40 years. Thus you shall know in your heart that as a man disciplines his son, so YAHUAH your Elohim disciplines you. Therefore you shall guard the commands of YAHUAH your Elohim, to walk in his ways, to walk in his ways and reverence him, to walk in his ways and reverence him, to walk the ancient path. Matthew chapter 4. Matthew chapter 4. Verse 1 through 4. Then Yahusha was led up by the Ruach into the wilderness to be tried by the devil. And after having fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. And the trier came and said to him, If you are the son of Elohim, command that these stones become bread. But he answering said, It has been written, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of YAHUAH. And so YAHUAH came in the flesh to demonstrate the ancient path for us, to walk in our literal footsteps. It is written in Hosea chapter 11, verse 1, When Yasharal was a child, I loved him, and out of Mashraim I called my son. And the second chapter of Matthew, when Herod had given instruction to kill all the firstborn, a messenger came to Yahusuf, giving him instruction to take the child down to Mashraim. And he obeyed and took the child down to Mashraim. And after Herod had died, the messenger came back to Yahusuf and told him, Herod has died now. Now you can bring the child back home. And the text declared that this was to fulfill the Nabuah that was written. Out of Mashraim, I called my son. Out of Mashraim, I called my son. And so YAHUAH came in flesh, not as his son, because he only has one son, and that is Yasharal. He came as his only begotten son, Yasharal, to walk in the literal footsteps of Yasharal. And where Yasharal failed, he succeeded. And thus now we have the right to become children of Elohim once again. And now he not only did that, but in doing so, he demonstrated to his son how to walk the ancient path. He demonstrated to us once again how to walk the ancient path. He walked as Abraham walked. He walked as Abraham walked. John chapter 5. John chapter 5. Beginning at verse 30. Of myself, I am unable to do any matter. Of myself, I am unable to do any matter. We can do nothing of ourselves. We must be born of Ruach. As I hear, I judge, and my judgment is righteous, because I do not seek my own desire. I do not seek my own desire. To walk the ancient path is not to seek our own desire. It is to seek the desire of the Father at all times. Understand, he is showing us the ancient path. He is showing us how to walk it here. But the desire of the Father who sent me. If I bear witness of myself, my witness is not true. There is another who bears witness of me, and I know that the witness which he witnesses of me is true. You have sent to Yahuchanan, and he bore witness to the truth. But I do not receive witness from man, but I say this in order that you might be delivered. He was the burning and shining lamp, and for a while you wished to celebrate in his light. But I have a greater witness than that of Yahuchanan, for the works that the Father gave me to accomplish, the works that I do, bear witness of me, that the Father has sent me, that the works that I do bear witness of me, that the Father has sent me. So the works that we do should bear witness that we are sons and daughters of Yahuwah Al-Yun. The works that we do should bear witness of who we are. The works that we do should bear witness that we are walking the ancient path. And the Father who sent me, he bore witness of me. You have neither heard his voice at any time, nor seen his form. And you do not have his word staying in you, because you do not believe in him who he sent. You search the scriptures because you think you possess everlasting life in them. And these are the ones that bear witness of me. But you do not desire to come to me in order to possess life. I do not receive esteem from men, but I know you, that you do not have the love of Elohim in you. I have come in my Father's name, and you do not receive me. If another comes in his own name, him you would receive. How you are able to believe when you're receiving esteem from another, and esteem that is from the only Elohim you do not seek. Do not think that I shall accuse you to the Father. There is one who accuses you, Masha, in whom you have set your expectation. For if you believed in Masha, you would have believed me, since he wrote about me. But if you do not believe his writings, how shall you believe my words? And so if we're walking in the ancient path, then the Father will bear witness of us. He will bear witness of us. And if we're walking the ancient path, then doing the desire of the Father, doing his desire, doing his works, is the only thing that should matter to us. Doing his work is the only thing that should matter to us. If we're truly walking the ancient path, doing his desire, I'm just looking at some precepts. I'm skimming through them. I'm not going to read them all. Doing his desire is the only thing that should matter to us. And so also walking this path, walking this ancient path, we must see Yahusha in the Torah. We must see him in the Torah. Walking this ancient path, we must see Yahusha in the Torah. We must see him there. We must see him in the Torah. We must see Yahusha in the Torah and walk in this ancient path. And looking here now at Matthew 7, reading verse 13 and 14 again. Matthew 7, reading verses 13 and 14. Enter in through the narrow gate, because the gate is wide, and the way, hodos, which means a road or a path, is broad. Which means a road or a path is broad. This is the broad path that leads to destruction. And there are many who enter through it. Because the gate is narrow, and the way, hodos, road, path, is hard pressed, which leads to life. And there are few who find it. Yahuwah in chapter 14. This is where we started in this teaching. We're not done walking this ancient path. We're done with Abraham. But we're going back to John chapter 14. This is where we started several weeks ago in this teaching. And understanding that we must see Yahusha in the Torah. And we must see his example as the example that we are to follow. Because all of the ancient fathers walked like he walked. He is the Ancient of Days. He is the ancient path. He is the living Torah. He is the example that we are to follow. Let not your heart be troubled. Believe in Elohim, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many staying places. And if not, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I shall come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, you might be too. And where I go, you know, and the way you know. Thuma said to him, Master, we do not know where you are going, and how are we able to know the way? Yahusha said to him, I am the way. Hodos, a road, by implication, a progress, the route, act, or distance. He is the living Torah. He is the ancient path. He is the way that leads to everlasting life. That is Torah. And the truth. Aletheia. It is the Greek aletheia. Truly, in truth, according to the truth. And the life. This is the Greek word zo. Life, or figuratively or literally. No one comes to the Father except through me. We know that the way is Torah. The way is Torah. In the very beginning, we've gone over this. The way is Torah. He is the living Torah. Torah is the truth. And Torah is the life. If we're careful to do it, we shall live by it. And so he is the ultimate example. And all the examples that we have read thus far, they point to him. They point to him. And eventually, as we continue to look at our ancient fathers, we're going to get to him. We're going to get to his example. And his example is going to point, it's going to mirror the example of our ancient fathers. And so looking again at Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 19, 16 and 19 through 19. Jeremiah chapter 6, reading verses 16 through 19. Thus said Yahuwah, stand in the ways, the rock, a road, as trodden, figuratively, a course of life, or a mode or action. Stand in the ways, a road, and see in acts of the old, Aḍam, which means eternity. And I read Daniel 7 to show that only Yahuwah is eternal. He is the Ancient of Days. And the ancient path is Yahuwah. The ancient path is Torah. And see in acts for the old ways. Acts for the old ways. Again, Aḍam. It means eternity, to conceal or hide or be hidden. To go beyond the vanishing point, to the point beyond human conception or human perception. And acts for the old paths. The old paths. The word here for path is natib, and it is a beaten track or path or road where the good way is, and walk in it. Indeed, your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path, and find rest for your beings. But they said, we do not walk in it. And I raised up watchmen over you and said, listen to a voice of a shofar. But they said, we do not listen. Therefore hear you nations, and know, O congregation, what is upon them. Hear, O earth. See, I am bringing evil upon this people, even the fruit of their thoughts. Why? Because they have not listened to my words, nor my Torah, and they rejected it. They have rejected the ancient path. They continue to reject the ancient path. They continue to reject it. I want to get to something. Going through some precepts because I want to get to something. I'm going to start at Leviticus chapter 18, verse 5. Leviticus chapter 18, verse 5. Leviticus chapter 18, verse 5. And you shall guard my laws and my right rulings, which a man does and lives by them. I am Yahuwah. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Luke chapter 10, verse 25 through 28. Just write these down. I was getting kind of late. Luke chapter 10, verse 25 through 28. And see, a certain one learned in the Torah stood up, trying him and saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit everlasting life? And he said to him, What has been written in the Torah? How do you read it? And he answering him said, You shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart, with all your being, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And he said to him, You have answered rightly. Do this, and you shall live. And a precept to that is Leviticus 18:5. Revelation chapter 22, verse 14. Glad are those doing his commands, so that the authority shall be theirs into the tree of life, and to enter through the gates into the city. We must walk the ancient path. It is the only way that leads to everlasting life. It is the only way that leads to everlasting life. But not only that, Mashpaka, not only that, here is what Abba wants us to understand about this ancient path. And this is why he has been preparing us to go to the nations, to teach the nations the ancient path, to call them out of darkness into his marvelous light. This is what he wants us to understand. And that is when Yahshua repents and returns to the ancient path. Listen, when Yahshua repents and returns to the ancient path, the reign of the adversary will come to an end. It will end. It will end. Reading here from the Testament of Dan, chapter 2. The Testament of Dan, chapter 2. Reading verses 15 through 17. Draw near unto Yahuwah and unto the messenger that interceded for you. For he is a mediator between Yahuwah and man, and for the shalom of Yashar'al. He shall stand up against the reign of the enemy. Therefore is the enemy eager to destroy all that call upon Yahuwah. Verse 17. For he knoweth that upon the day on which Yashar'al shall repent, the reign of the enemy shall be brought to an end. The reign of the enemy shall be brought to an end. This is why he is awakening us in this season to coming back to the ancient path. And this is how we are alerted to understand that the reign of the adversary is getting ready to come to an end, because we are returning to the ancient path with all of our heart, mind, and strength. Some of us. And so a precept to that is Deuteronomy chapter 30. I'm going to read verses 1 through 7. And I think I'm going to end it there. I have some more precepts, but the hour's late. I think I'm going to end it right there. Deuteronomy chapter 8 is a precept to what we just read. And it shall be when all these words come upon you, the barakah and the curse. And we talked about this over last Shabbat or the previous Shabbat. One of the Shabbats, we talked about this, how this is dual layered, how this is applicable to a remnant within a remnant, and how it is applicable to also the remnant. And it shall be when all these words come upon you, the barakah and the curse, which I have set before you, and you shall bring them back to your heart among all the nations which Yahuwah, your Elohim, drives you, and shall turn back to Yahuwah, and tell Tashubah, shall turn back to the ancient path, turn back to Yahuwah, your Elohim, and obey his voice, according to all I command you today, with all your heart and with all your being, you and your children. Then Yahuwah, your Elohim, shall turn back your captivity, and shall have compassion on you, and he shall turn back and gather you from all the peoples where Yahuwah, your Elohim, has scattered you. If any of you are driven out to the farthest parts under the Shamayim, from there Yahuwah, your Elohim, does gather you, and from there he does take you. And Yahuwah, your Elohim, shall bring you to the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. And he shall do good to you, and increase you more than your fathers. And Yahuwah, your Elohim, shall circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed, to love Yahuwah, your Elohim, with all your heart and with all your being, so that you might live. And Yahuwah, your Elohim, shall put all these curses on your enemies and on those who hate you, who persecuted you. When all of Yashar'al, when Yashar'al turns back to the ancient path, both of the remnant within the remnant and the remnant, when we turn back to the ancient path, the reign of the adversary will come to an end. And this is why Mispaka, he goes through great lengths to try and keep us away from the ancient path, to try and keep us away from obeying Torah, to try and keep us away from the ancient path. He goes through great lengths to do this, because he knows when we turn back to the ancient path, when we teshuba and come back to the ancient path, his reign will come to an end. His reign will come to an end. And the attacks have grown stronger. They've grown stronger, and they're going to grow even more stronger. But we must remain steadfast and trustworthy and come back to this ancient path and turn neither to the right or to the left of it, and stay firmly implanted in the way everlasting that leads to everlasting life. Abba, we thank you for this continued teaching. We thank you for bringing us back to the ancient path, and now giving us the understanding that when your children return to the ancient path, the reign of the adversary will come to an end. We pray, Abba, that as these teachings have gone forth, that your word has not fallen void to the ground, that it has not fallen to the wayside, that it is not falling among stony ground, that it is not fallen amongst thorns, but your word that your word has fallen on fertile soil, because I am under no illusion, Abba, that this word is falling on fertile soil amongst all. Not all, Abba, are going to get this, but whom this word is intended for. I pray that it has fallen on fertile soil, and that your Ruach would then come and water that seed, so that this seed grows into a mighty tree, producing the fruit that leads to everlasting life. Let not one word fall void to the ground that your servant has spoken, that you have spoken through your servant. but let it go forth and accomplish that which you have purposed it to do. In the Basham of Yahushua HaMashiach, so be it, so be it, so be it.
Yeah.
So be it.
So be it.